My name's Charlie Hart. I'm also known as Ausome Charlie, with an AU for autistic. I am openly autistic. It's part of my identity. I don't think I've ever been normal passing. But as one of my Gen Z kids says, what is normal anyway? It's just a mode on Minecraft, and not even the best mode. So thank you. I can always count on my kids to big me up. So this was me. I was quite a clever kid. I went to a mainstream school. I did okay. Yeah, I wasn't that interested in some of the subjects, but I got through. I was bullied for being weird and different. I was quite boyish. I was a tomboy. Didn't follow fashions. I didn't run with the crowd. But yeah, I was a normal kid, sure. But my brother was autistic. We knew that. He went to a special school. Yes, you heard that right. He's special. I'm not. So I fumbled my way through education, and even then I like to be on the stage, so I would like to be the centre of attention, smashing autistic stereotypes straight away. So I did amateur dramatics, I played guitar and sang in school assemblies and all sorts. I did taekwondo, and I wanted to be a rock star. However, I went to university, and it's at that point that my life started to fall off the rails. So even though I was bright, even though I was confident, suddenly I found myself completely out of my depth, floundering. I could not cope with the normal stuff that all of my intellectual peers seemed to be able to do fairly easily, whether that's things like joining the library, joining the computer room, knowing where you're supposed to be, noticing when the clocks go back or forward rather than wondering where everyone is all day. I couldn't do that stuff, and I didn't do my coursework. I ended up flunking out quite by chance. In my early 20s, really, I served to be a warning to others. So I'm writing a book about my experiences. I was pretty vulnerable, pretty open to abuse, and I want others to learn from my mistakes. I'm calling this Alice in Blunderland. Yeah, my stage persona was Alice back then. And I'm really lucky because after quite a major breakdown, I moved back in with my mum at the age of 21 and got a job in HR. There I discovered I'm really passionate about people motivation, about teams, the people data and projects. I got involved in salary reviews. I ended up specialising in HR systems and management information. I learnt to use Excel, which I excelled at. And yeah, so suddenly I was in a pretty bad state after flunking university and not meeting my potential. My self-esteem was in tatters, but finding a job where I could lean into my strengths and my passions, and guess what? I was bloody good at it. I stayed in that job for 20 years. Yeah, so yes, I've got 20 years experience of HR, which is why you should book me to speak about autism and neurodiversity rather than a 20-something with no experience of corporate at all. So I just thought I'd get that in. But yeah, this was me throughout that period before I knew I was autistic. I was chronically overwhelmed, masking so heavily I didn't know what lay under the layers, trying to be all things to all people. Oh yeah, I'm a great team player and I can work autonomously. I have great attention to detail and I can see the bigger picture. Who does all that stuff? Why not just value for me for what I'm good at? So 15 years of being chronically overwhelmed and burning out regularly, which people thought was depression. It wasn't, it was burnout. And eventually, my son, Iggy, he was identified as being autistic. And this is when I realised, actually, maybe there's a concrete reason why I'm struggling. Maybe there's a reason why I keep having these emotional outbursts and these like tantrums, almost like a toddler having a tantrum, except I wasn't trying to get my own way. I'd got no control over it. It was like a major brain event where I either completely exploded outwardly or completely caved in inwardly and became unresponsive. I didn't know what was going on. Maybe I'm autistic as well. I already know my brother is. There's certainly signs of it in my parents, and now my kid is. So I went to get diagnosed autistic. Yeah, I was referred to a psychiatrist who thought I had borderline personality disorder. Fortunately, she was a woman, and she knows how autism presents in intelligent, grown-up women. And she said, it's clear to me that you have autism. There's a disconnect between how you come across and your intent. So all this time, 15 years by now, working in HR, I thought that I was approachable and likable and helpful to everyone, but I was coming across quite abrupt and volcanic even. So yeah, realizing there was a concrete reason for that, suddenly I didn't feel broken. I didn't think there was something fundamentally wrong with my personality. I finally knew I was just autistic. It's unsurprising that I hadn't identified as autistic until the age of 42, because when you look at the diagnostic criteria, they don't sound like me, really. It's all about deficits, 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 deficits. You're impaired, you can't do this, you're substandard, not good enough, not a good enough human being. Well, I tell you, I've got several neurodivergent friends in the room. Not one of them thinks I've got communication impairments, I'm sure. I can communicate fine with Sam, yeah, and with Beth, and you just need a dictionary, I think. You need a neurodivergish to English dictionary, and then you'll get what I'm on about. But I reframe these as differences. There's not something wrong with how I communicate, it's different, yeah? And all of the other diagnostic criteria that pathologize my neurotype, let's look at those. So many of us have like stereotypical movements or stimming, and like I stim with a bracelet. I play with the beads. When I was younger, when I didn't know I was autistic, I used to twirl my hair. Didn't think that was a problem until people started making me feel self-conscious about it. But it's not hurting anyone. It doesn't make me less of a person. We can be overly insistent on routines. So what? It's really good to have routines. I've got ADHD as well, so my autistic routines and planning and preparation, they help enable me despite of having ADHD. Sensory sensitivities, sure, I've got those, but I've also got things that bring sensory joy. And okay, yeah, I've got some highly fixated interests. That is where expertise comes from. So when reframed like that, does anyone think it's a terrible tragedy that I'm autistic? No, I didn't think so. Yeah, it's not. I'm awesome with an AU. I found out then, I joined Twitter, and I found Actually Autistic Twitter, where adults who are autistic write about their own lived experience. So this isn't stuff you learn from autism parents or clinicians or doctors or academics. It's learning from each other, #Actually Autistic. And I found Harriet Cannon there. She is the Disability Services Manager at the University of Leeds, and she put together a list of 12 skills that autistic people are more likely to have, 12 strengths or positives. And this ranged from things like attention to detail, observational skills, expertise, yeah, why pathologize that? Integrity, it's all stuff that made me good at my job. So I wasn't good at my job as an HR systems analyst, despite being autistic, but because of it, right? So this helped me to put my self-esteem back together and realize I'm not so broken. I also have ADHD. I now have a dual diagnosis. Yes, dual with an A, there's two of them. But actually, sometimes it feels like a dual diagnosis because they often battle each other. My autistic side would have stayed at home today. My ADHD side wants to get the dopamine hits from being on this big stage in front of all you people. And it's so much conflict, but actually they work together to enhance my skill set. So, and I work very much with other neurodivergent people in this space, including many in this room. Kerry Bentley gave me this format. Kerry's over there, excellent trainer about neurodiversity and autism. She gave me this format where I can plot my strengths, the further out the circle, the darker the colour, the more I'm saying, yes, I have this strength. So this is me on a good day. I'm great at pattern recognition. I've got fantastic attention to detail, various other skills because of my neurotype, not despite. But this is when my needs are met. So if I'm dysregulated, if I've got a lot of sensory overload, like Sam very eloquently described earlier, then you might find that I struggle a bit and I'm not quite as superpowered as this diagram would make out. But actually, the reason that I struggled so much for such a big chunk of my life, over 15 years, is because I was trying to perform societal ideas of normal. So you might have heard the word neurodivergent. It just means that we recognise that our brains work different from the normal, standard societal idea of normal. Who wants to have a normal, bog standard brain? No, I don't. I don't think anyone here does. And I talk about neurodiversity, which just means that every single human brain is unique. We each think, feel, and process uniquely. Brains are very, very complicated things, and it's a basic biological fact that they're all unique. This means that we've each got our own skill set, our own strengths, our own support needs, our own preferences even, because it isn't just about needs. You know, everyone wants to work in a way that works for them and to thrive as themselves. So I'm not broken, I'm just wired differently, and I'm awesome. And I made that my identity. My Twitter account was called Ausome Charlie with an AU for autistic, and now that is my company name and it is my brand. And I've got 22,000 followers on LinkedIn, many of whom are in the HR and equality and diversity and leadership space, because actually it's about quality, not just quantity. And I know my stuff about employment law and the realities of working in HR, working in management, the corporate environment. I know about the Employment Rights Bill. I know how this is going to impact neurodivergent people and those who manage them and recruit them. So definitely pick me because of my HR pedigree, which Michelle is constantly reminding me to talk about. So thank you, Michelle. And there are many aspects of the autistic experience where if you understand them, you can help us to thrive in our roles. One is about those attention tunnels, that deep dive expertise that I was talking about. If we wrench the tendrils of our brains out of that big thing, then it can actually be really dysregulating. It's really important to learn how to manage our energy, and autistic people and a lot of people with chronic illnesses and disabilities sometimes think of that as a finite number of spoons of energy that you wake up with. And when we find this stuff out about ourselves, it helps us to self-advocate. We can be early warning systems for toxic environments. So if the culture is toxic and we're struggling, we're like the canary in the coal mine. So please do pay attention to us. Don't just leave us to die or give us a gas mask. Any employer who can help their employees thrive at work by finding out about their needs and meeting those needs, they're going to benefit from a neurodiverse workforce where everyone has got that expertise and we can all bring a different approach and everyone is happy and engaged. I talk about neurodiversity and many related themes. And thank you so much for listening. I've been Ausome Charlie with an AU for autistic. You've been awesome too. Thank you very much.
Good job. Thank you.